Most men don't realize it, but the single most damaging mistake in a relationship after 40 is emotional neglect disguised as stability or routine. They think that being consistent in providing financially or maintaining household routines is enough to keep love alive. But by this age, women are not seeking mere survival, they are seeking connection, understanding, and emotional resonance. A man can have every practical element of a relationship in place, yet lose intimacy and closeness simply by failing to recognize her emotional world. As men age, the pressures of work, family, and life responsibilities often create a subconscious withdrawal from emotional labor. He may believe that because he provides materially or shows care in tangible ways, the emotional needs are automatically met. The reality is that women after 40 have lived through many experiences. They can sense when attention is mechanical, when empathy is lacking, and when emotional intimacy has been neglected. This disconnect often begins subtly: small misunderstandings, skipped conversations, and lack of active listening, eventually accumulating into resentment or emotional distance. Emotional neglect manifests in different ways. It may appear as a lack of engagement in conversations, dismissing her worries as trivial, or failing to celebrate her accomplishments and milestones. It may also be invisible, such as the failure to initiate meaningful experiences together or to express appreciation for her efforts. Women perceive this silence, and over time, it erodes the foundation of love and trust. The paradox is striking: the man believes he is maintaining stability, yet in reality, he is letting the relationship stagnate. Understanding female psychology at this stage is crucial. A woman's emotional needs are deeply intertwined with her self-worth, sense of partnership, and life satisfaction. Ignoring these needs doesn't just create distance, it opens the door for dissatisfaction, disconnection, or even the contemplation of life without her partner. Emotional neglect is not always about harsh words or conflict. It is often about absence of empathy, absence of understanding, and absence of shared emotional space. The remedy is not complex, but it requires intentionality. Men must actively engage in emotional presence. This means asking thoughtful questions, listening without judgment, validating feelings, and sharing their own emotions without fear of appearing weak. It is a deliberate investment into the relational ecosystem, attending not just to practical needs, but to emotional and psychological harmony. Consistency is the key. Small daily habits, checking in genuinely, expressing gratitude, acknowledging her perspective, and investing in shared experiences can dramatically strengthen the bond. Women notice patterns, not grand gestures. The slow, steady cultivation of emotional connection is what sustains passion, trust, and intimacy in relationships after 40. This is not optional, it is essential for survival and thriving in love. Moreover, men must recognize that vulnerability is strength, not weakness. Sharing fears, doubts, and aspirations invites her into a deeper relational space. Emotional intimacy grows where authenticity exists. A woman who feels heard, understood, and emotionally supported will naturally reciprocate with closeness, affection, and loyalty. Conversely, emotional neglect, no matter how subtle, signals disengagement and drives the relationship toward stagnation or erosion. In conclusion, the 5-1 mistake men make in relationships after 40 is failing to prioritize emotional connection. They assume routine, stability, or physical presence is sufficient. They underestimate the evolved emotional intelligence of their partner and neglect the delicate yet critical art of psychological engagement. Relationships after 40 are not about survival, they are about flourishing, depth, and shared growth. By consciously choosing emotional presence, consistent care, and vulnerability, a man can not only save but elevate his relationship, creating a bond that deepens with time, rather than one that quietly dissolves. After the age of 40, women enter a phase of life where emotional awareness becomes not just a trait, but a guiding force in their relationships. By this stage, many women have accumulated decades of experiences that have shaped how they perceive, interpret, and respond to the emotional world around them. This heightened emotional intelligence means that they can often sense subtleties in behavior, tone, and attention that a man might overlook. Emotional awareness in women at this stage is not superficial, it is finely tuned and profoundly impactful on how they engage in partnerships. For men, understanding this is crucial because failing to recognize and respond appropriately to these emotional cues can be the single most damaging mistake in sustaining a relationship after 40. Emotional awareness matters because it forms the foundation of connection, trust, and intimacy, and ignoring it can quietly erode even the most stable of relationships. Women after 40 tend to be deeply introspective. Their experiences, both positive and negative, inform a clear sense of what they value, what they can tolerate, and what they expect from a partner. Emotional neglect at this stage is rarely overlooked because they have developed the ability to distinguish between genuine engagement and superficial attention. Men often underestimate this capacity, assuming that as long as they provide materially, manage household responsibilities, or maintain a routine of stability, the relationship will remain secure. The truth is that emotional neglect, whether intentional or unintentional, is far more destructive than any lack of material support. Women at this age seek meaningful recognition, affirmation, and validation. They want their feelings to be acknowledged, their experiences to be respected, and their inner worlds to be understood. When a man fails to pay attention to emotional cues, the consequences accumulate gradually. She may initially try to communicate her feelings through subtle hints, tone shifts, or indirect statements. If these signals are ignored, she may withdraw emotionally, creating distance in the relationship without any overt conflict. This distance is often misinterpreted by men as disinterest or moodiness, but it is, in fact, a protective mechanism. Women at this stage have learned that persistent emotional neglect without acknowledgement can lead to frustration, resentment, and eventually disengagement. Men must recognize that emotional awareness is not a luxury, but a necessity for sustaining intimacy. Being attentive to her emotions, responding with empathy, and validating her experiences are actions that convey respect, care, and genuine partnership. The role of emotional awareness extends beyond simple acknowledgement of feelings. It involves active listening, observing patterns, and understanding the underlying motivations behind her responses. For example, a woman may express frustration over seemingly minor issues, but these moments often reflect deeper concerns about the state of the relationship, her sense of being valued, or unmet needs for connection. Men who fail to recognize these underlying signals risk responding superficially, offering generic reassurances or dismissive statements that do not address the core emotional need. Over time, these small missteps accumulate, creating a sense of emotional neglect that can undermine years of shared history. Emotional awareness is about perceiving these subtleties, understanding their significance, and responding with care that aligns with her expectations and emotional reality. Women after 40 also tend to have clearer boundaries and a stronger sense of self-respect. They are less likely to tolerate repeated neglect or emotional dismissal. This means that men who once may have relied on charm, physical presence, or material support alone must now engage in deeper relational work. Emotional awareness becomes a mirror reflecting the health of the relationship. When a man invests in understanding her emotions, listens without judgment, and demonstrates empathy consistently, it communicates commitment, respect, and love. Conversely, failure to do so communicates indifference, which is far more damaging than a lack of material provision or occasional conflict. Emotional neglect is often invisible, and yet its effects are profound, quietly eroding intimacy and trust. A practical approach for men is to cultivate habits that reinforce emotional engagement. This can begin with simple daily practices, such as asking open-ended questions that invite genuine sharing, actively listening without interrupting or offering immediate solutions, and reflecting back understanding to show she has been heard. Beyond these surface practices, emotional awareness also requires men to be present mentally and emotionally, not just physically. It is the difference between sitting in the same room while distracted by work or devices and truly engaging in the shared space with attentive eyes, active listening, and heartfelt responses. These habits reinforce emotional safety, a cornerstone of mature relationships, and convey that her inner world is valued and respected. Emotional awareness also involves understanding how past experiences shape her current expectations. Women at this stage have lived through successes, disappointments, losses, and lessons that have refined their emotional intelligence. They are highly attuned to patterns of neglect, avoidance, and insincerity, which they can often detect before a man even realizes the gap. Men who dismiss or underestimate the importance of emotional engagement risk repeating patterns that have caused harm in past relationships. Emotional awareness is not about overanalyzing or controlling her feelings. It is about attuning oneself to the dynamics of emotional exchange, recognizing moments of vulnerability, and responding in ways that foster trust, intimacy, and mutual respect. Another critical aspect of emotional awareness is timing. Women's emotional needs are dynamic, influenced by daily stressors, life events, and relational interactions. Men who ignore the ebb and flow of emotional energy fail to provide the support and understanding required to maintain connection. This requires patience, attentiveness, and the ability to prioritize emotional engagement even when other obligations compete for attention. Emotional awareness is a continuous practice, not a one-time effort, and it must be maintained consistently to reinforce the strength and stability of the relationship. Failure to do so risks creating a slow erosion of intimacy, leaving a woman feeling unseen and undervalued. Ultimately, emotional awareness is a form of love that transcends words and gestures. It is the practice of being present, understanding, and responsive to the complex emotional landscape of a woman who has lived through life's experiences and grown in wisdom. After 40, women are less forgiving of emotional neglect because they know their worth and have little tolerance for superficial engagement. Men who embrace emotional awareness can create deep, enduring connections that strengthen over time. Those who neglect it risk creating gaps that are difficult, if not impossible, to repair. Emotional awareness is the bridge that connects two people in authentic intimacy, mutual respect, and sustained partnership, and mastering it is essential for saving and nurturing relationships at this stage of life. After 40, the way women perceive communication in relationships changes profoundly. They no longer seek idle chatter or superficial exchanges. Instead, they crave meaningful dialogue that fosters connection, understanding, and intimacy. Many men, however, fail to recognize this shift, mistakenly believing that frequent texting, casual small talk, or routine conversations are sufficient to sustain a deep emotional bond. While quantity may provide a sense of presence, it cannot replace the power of quality communication. Women at this stage are highly sensitive to the depth, authenticity, and intention behind the words spoken, and failure to engage in substantive communication is one of the most common mistakes men make in long-term relationships. Understanding this principle is essential to building trust, reinforcing intimacy, and maintaining emotional closeness. Communication after 40 is not about the sheer number of words exchanged, but the significance of those words and the emotional connection they convey. Women have typically experienced decades of relationships, personal growth, and social interactions that allow them to discern sincerity from superficiality. They can intuitively tell when a partner is speaking out of habit, obligation, or routine rather than genuine care. This means that empty expressions like, "How was your day?" without genuine follow-up or attentiveness are often perceived as automatic and unengaged. Women at this stage value interactions that reflect true interest, empathy, and emotional presence. They need to feel that their thoughts, feelings, and experiences matter, and that they are not being treated as an obligation or routine check-in. Quality communication also requires active listening, which is far more than just hearing words. Women expect their partners to engage with what they are saying, reflect understanding, and respond thoughtfully. This means observing tone, body language, and emotional nuance, then responding in a way that validates her feelings and perspective. Men often focus on problem solving or offering solutions prematurely, which can unintentionally undermine the sense of being heard. While advice and guidance have their place, the first priority must always be emotional attunement. Women crave acknowledgement that their experience matters, even if no immediate solution is required. This attentiveness communicates empathy, respect, and genuine engagement, which are far more valuable than frequent, shallow exchanges. Another critical aspect of quality communication is timing and context. Women after 40 are typically balancing multiple responsibilities, from career obligations to family demands, which can heighten stress levels and emotional sensitivity. Men who fail to recognize appropriate moments for meaningful conversation risk either overwhelming or alienating their partner. Understanding the emotional landscape, choosing the right time, and approaching discussions with patience and care ensures that conversations are productive, connecting, and emotionally nourishing. Random, hurried, or distracted communication sends the message that her thoughts are not prioritized, even if the words themselves are polite or well-intentioned. Women at this stage are less tolerant of fragmented or inattentive dialogue because they have learned the value of mutual engagement and respect. Moreover, the depth of communication is essential. Women value sharing that goes beyond logistics, responsibilities, or daily routines. They want to discuss aspirations, challenges, feelings, and reflections on life and the relationship itself. Men often avoid these conversations, either out of fear of vulnerability, discomfort with emotional depth, or the assumption that practical matters suffice to maintain connection. This avoidance, however, creates distance. Without meaningful dialogue, women may feel isolated within the relationship, perceiving that their partner is unavailable or disengaged on a deeper emotional level. Quality communication, therefore, is not just an exchange of words, it is a bridge for intimacy, a mechanism for mutual understanding, and a demonstration of commitment to shared growth.